Good morning, Chairwoman Maloney. Thank you for inviting me today. My testimony is about decisions, the ones I've made, the ones the firearms industry has made, and ultimately, the decisions you must make. Like so many gun owners in America, I grew up with guns and was taught that responsibility and safety are critical components of firearms ownership. In 1995, I made the decision to get into the gun industry. For the first several years of my career, the same responsibility I was raised with prevailed there. Tactical gear was not allowed in the largest trade shows. Companies like Ruger even included their founding motto on all advertising, arms maker for responsible citizens. By 2007, change was happening as most companies began combining guns with the political fear and conspiracy machine of the NRA. It worked very well because the same things that drove NRA radicalization also drove gun sales. Prior to 2008, guns like the AR-15 were a pariah, but they represented a new and untapped market, and the NRA and the NSSF needed new political symbols and profit. And so companies like Smith & Wesson made the decision to get into the AR-15 business. A few years later, the M&P 15, as in military and police, became the best-selling rifle in America. Eventually, young male gun customers in places like Parkland, Florida, Highland Park, Illinois, and Kenosha, Wisconsin, all decided to use an M&P 15. By 2008, Ruger made the decision to remove the responsible citizen motto from most of its public advertising. Those industry leaders who spoke out against this new trajectory were attacked and marginalized. Everyone was told that any new gun buyer or any gun marketing was good, so long as it furthered political aims and sold guns. The trend of dismissing responsibility has only worsened, and today the industry condones frightening marketing that openly partners with domestic terror orgs like the Boogaloo Boys, a group that hopes for race wars and wears Hawaiian shirts. There is no industry criticism of marketing like this. In fact, the maker of this Boogaloo rifle is also one of the nation's largest gun retailers, and they boast of the public support of most of the largest gun companies, including Smith & Wesson. It's not that the industry and the NSSF are shy about aggressively policing the actions of members. In 2018, after the Parkland shooting, Ed Stack, the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods, removed AR-15s and tactical gear from his stores. Stack still sold plenty of other guns, but within days, the NSSF Board of Governors officially expelled Stack and Dick's to let everyone know that anything short of complete devotion would not be tolerated. I was inside the industry as new companies like Daniel Defense built businesses by advertising AR-15s with slogans encouraging young men to use what the Special Forces guys use. Like many companies, they also sought and celebrated the inclusion of their AR-15s in first-person shooter games and movies. When Daniel Defense tweeted a picture of a toddler blessed by a Proverbs verse while cradling an AR-15 on the same week as the Uvalde shooter was killing kids with one of their rifles, there was no criticism from industry leadership. But there has been a prestigious reward. The same NSSF Board of Governors that expelled Ed Stack elected Marty Daniel to a coveted seat on that board, a position he still holds today. Mr. Killoy is an important voting member of that NSSF board. Sadly for me, there is no place in the industry for anyone who believes in moderation or responsible regulation. If they did exist, they were frightened into submission or forced out. In my last months as an industry executive, I snapped photos like this. It's a tactical advertisement over the entrance of the SHOT Show that weirdly combines Revolutionary War soldiers, a modern AR-15, and the promise of daily gunfights as a business proposition. On January 6, 2021, less than a year after I took this photo, these exact components coalesced into a violent mob just a few hundred yards from here. Despite guns being the center of radicalized domestic terrorists, there is no industry rebuke, not of the come and take it flags on January 6th, not of armed men invading the Michigan Capitol, certainly not of Kyle Rittenhouse owning the libs by shooting and killing people at protest with his Smith & Wesson military and police rifle. Any rational person can see the direct lines from this marketing to the troubled young men who kill people in places like Buffalo and El Paso and Uvalde. Anyone can see the direct lines to our nation's most dangerous domestic terror orgs. I am here on behalf of responsible gun owners, like me, who harbor a deep fear about what this is doing to our country. I am also here to warn you that there is much more of this on the way. No one from the industry is going to stop it, and it's going to get much worse. Now, as the elected leaders of our country, you have a decision to make. What is to be done about this? Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Oversight Committee. Thank you for inviting me to testify today and for giving me the opportunity to defend the rights of millions of American gun owners to own and maintain AR-15s for self-defense. My name is Antonia Okafor-Cover, and I'm the National Director of Women's Outreach for Gun Owners of America. I'm also a national spokesperson. I'm a certified firearms instructor and range safety officer who specializes in working with women, particularly those with traumatic backgrounds. I'm what you would call an accidental activist. My parents are immigrants from Nigeria, and I grew up primarily with an anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment mindset until I arrived in college in 2009 and was greatly grieved at the epidemic of sexual assaults occurring at universities across the U.S. As a sexual assault survivor myself, I have since become a passionate advocate of empowering women. And in my years as a range safety officer and firearms instructor, I have found that my female students tend to give the AR-15 the best review overall. This year, Gun Owners of America put on free events for women that let new female shooters try out an array of firearms, from handguns to rifles to shotguns. Out of all the firearms, it was always the AR-15 that they raved about. Many of them surprised given the anti-AR-15 rhetoric pushed by organizations spending millions of dollars trying to deter them from owning one. The AR-15 allows women to have a larger firearm without having to absorb the recoil as much as one does with a smaller handheld firearm. The AR-15 makes it easier for those who have a physical disadvantage to the attacker to have an upper hand. Having a rifle allows me the advantage of being able to shoot the attacker from much further away than a standard handgun. The number one reason that women buy firearms is for self-defense. I'm a proud owner of a Daniel Defense rifle, and it is my go-to rifle. It is by far lighter than any other rifle I own. It makes it easier for me to hold, and yet it still does an incredible job of absorbing the impact after each trigger pull. Women have been known to use rifles in defense in plenty of instances, but the people who have used Armalite rifles range from older men to young women. For instance, Stephen Bulliford, a GOA spokesman and senior living in Sutherland Springs, Texas, used an AR-15 to effectively stop a mass shooter at the church in his town a few years ago. In November 2019, a woman in her 9th month of pregnancy used her family's AR-15 to stop 2 armed attackers in her home. After they severely wounded her husband and attempted to grab her 11-year-old daughter, the wife grabbed the AR-15 and drove the attackers away. One of them was found dead from the round she put in him before they fled from the scene. More recently in Atlanta, a Black Army veteran protected his home and family inside, using AR-15 to fend off 2 intruders from his home. His wife was hiding inside the home, and the man used his rifle in defense of his family, home, and property. Banning these firearms will only make it difficult for women like me to protect our families. Gun bans never stop bad guys from getting firearms. As my written testimony shows, the original ban of 1994 did nothing to reduce the crime. Consider all the recent shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde were aided and abetted by gun restrictions. The Buffalo shooter indicated he was comforted that his victims would be limited in their ability to carry firearms by New York's tough gun laws, and Uvalde school was a gun-free zone. It's not surprising that 94% of mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. The Second Amendment guarantees a right that we already have. It pre-exists the Second Amendment. The right is to self-preservation. The Second Amendment's primary focus is not about hunting. The Second Amendment was put into the Constitution as protection of the people against an oppressive government. History has shown countless times that any people group without the means of keeping and bearing arms has remained the oppressed people group. Our history in America has shown oppression correlated with gun control. Even after Black people fought alongside their white counterparts in the military, many came home to racist governments and institutions that systematically took away firearms from Black communities that relied on firearms to deter attacks from the Ku Klux Klan and other anti-gun organizations. Martin Luther King Jr. applied 2 times for a concealed carry permit. Both times, the racist police in charge of giving Dr. King a permit refused to give him one. In conclusion, because of the many benefits of the AR-15 for women and those with physical disadvantages, including the fact that our Constitution is clear that no government body has the power to determine which firearm I choose to keep in my possession, the Armalite rifle is a platform that is an exceptional, commonly owned firearm and should be protected as such. Thank you.